We crew felt the weight of the world on our shoulders. We knew that everyone would be looking at us.
Tonight, we want to remember Michael Collins, who may have had the toughest job on Apollo 11.
Imagine being completely alone while orbiting the moon, with no way to communicate with Earth, surrounded by the silent emptiness of space. Michael Collins, the often overlooked astronaut from Apollo 11, experienced exactly that. But what if, during that time in isolation, he saw something that would stay with him for the rest of his life? Before passing away, Michael finally spoke out and shared a truth that NASA had never acknowledged. So, let's dive into what really happened. Michael Collins, The Road to Apollo. Michael Collins is most known for being the command module pilot on Apollo 11, the third member of the mission. But once you hear what he eventually confessed about what took place during the journey to the moon, you'll realize that most people never truly gave him the credit he deserved. But before we get into that moment, it's important to understand that his life leading up to Apollo 11 was just as interesting and important. Before his involvement in the Apollo mission, Michael already had a well-established career that reflected his strong interest in aviation, his military background, and his early experience as an astronaut. He was born on October 31, 1930, in Rome, Italy. His father, James Lawton Collins, served as a major general in the U.S. Army. The family had deep military roots, and that background shaped Michael's values early on. From a young age, he was taught the importance of responsibility, discipline, and service to the nation. Because of his father's assignments, the Collins family moved often. They lived in various places such as the United States, Puerto Rico, and Rome. Growing up in a military household, Michael was introduced to aviation early. His interest in flight was sparked by pilots like Charles Lindbergh, whose solo flight across the Atlantic inspired many young boys at the time. Michael's uncle, General J. Lawton Collins, who had served during World War II, also told him stories about military flying, which deepened his fascination with aviation. His path to becoming an astronaut started with his education. He studied at St. Albans School in Washington, D.C., where he earned a reputation for being a strong student with a particular interest in science. But even then, flying was his true goal, and he was determined to become a pilot. After finishing high school, Michael followed his father's example and enrolled at the United States Military Academy at West Point. He graduated in 1952 with a degree in military science and ranked 66th in his class. Although West Point was tough and demanding, it shaped his mindset and prepared him for the challenges he would face later on as both a test pilot and an astronaut. Even though he succeeded at West Point, Michael had his sights set on becoming a pilot. After graduating, he chose to join the U.S. Air Force because he wanted to fly the most advanced planes and work at the cutting edge of aviation. He started flight training at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi. There, he quickly stood out as a talented pilot. He earned his wings in 1953 and was then assigned to the 21st Fighter Bomber Wing at George Air Force Base in California. He flew the F-86 Sabre, one of the most advanced fighter jets of its time, which had played a major role in the Korean War. Flying the F-86 was a thrilling experience for him. He loved the chance to push the aircraft to its limits. Still, this phase of his career came with risks. High-speed jet training was dangerous, and Michael lost several friends in accidents. These tragedies left a deep mark on him and made him even more committed to flying safely and precisely. His calm approach and strong flying skills earned him the respect of his peers and commanders. He kept moving forward in his career, taking on harder assignments, advanced training, and more technical responsibilities. In 1960, Michael reached a turning point when he was chosen to attend the U.S. Air Force Experimental Flight Test Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Edwards was the heart of new aviation research, where pilots tested the newest and most sophisticated aircraft. The school trained pilots to push both machines and themselves to new limits. At Edwards, he flew several experimental aircraft, including the rocket-powered X-15. This plane could reach altitudes near the edge of space. The X-15 program was among the most daring of the time, pushing aircraft to extreme speeds and heights that few had ever reached. Michael's role as a test pilot demanded more than just excellent flying abilities. It required sharp thinking and the ability to react instantly during high-stress situations. His time at Edwards Air Force Base played a major role in shaping his career. It helped him build a strong reputation as an outstanding pilot, with a growing interest in spaceflight. It was also during his time there that Michael started thinking seriously about becoming an astronaut. The early 1960s marked a time of intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union during the space race. After Yuri Gagarin became the first person in space, NASA was determined to catch up and eventually surpass the Soviet Union's accomplishments. The idea of space travel greatly appealed to Michael, who viewed it as the next step in aviation. In 1962, he submitted his application to join NASA's astronaut program. But he was not selected during his first attempt. Even though he didn't make it in, he didn't lose hope. Michael understood that the selection process was extremely tough, with the top pilots across the country competing for a place. He made the decision to strengthen his qualifications and try again. A year later, in 1963, he reapplied and was accepted into NASA's third group of astronauts, known as the 14. This group included several future Apollo astronauts such as Buzz Aldrin, Gene Cernan, and Alan Bean. Being chosen for this team was a major milestone and signaled the start of a new phase in Michael's career. Before he joined the Apollo program, he took part in NASA's Gemini program. This series of missions was focused on developing the techniques and skills needed for future lunar exploration. The Gemini missions were important for testing spacewalks, long-duration missions, and spacecraft docking, skills that were considered essential for Apollo. Michael served as the pilot for Gemini 10, which launched on July 18, 1966. This mission was a vital step in America's efforts to reach the moon, and he had a key role in its accomplishments. During this flight, he became the first astronaut to complete 2 spacewalks during a single mission, a task that was both physically tough and mentally demanding. It required him to operate outside the spacecraft while being secured by a tether. The mission achieved all its goals, including docking with 2 separate target vehicles and conducting experiments in orbit. With these successes, Michael was now in a strong position for future missions. His background as a fighter pilot, test pilot, and astronaut had fully prepared him for the difficult tasks that lay ahead in space exploration. Following his success in the Gemini program, Michael was initially assigned to Apollo 8, which would become the first mission to orbit the moon. However, a medical problem, a herniated disc in his back, meant he needed surgery in 1968. This health issue forced NASA to change his assignment temporarily. After recovering, Michael was given the role of Command Module Pilot for Apollo 11. This position was critical, as he would be flying the Command Module Columbia, which would stay in lunar orbit, while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. His steady nature and experience made him the ideal choice. He was in charge of all the systems on board, and would be the only astronaut in the module during the moon landing, making his responsibilities both technically complex and mentally demanding. Apollo 11. Training. The preparation for Apollo 11 was some of the toughest and most thorough training any astronaut had ever received. Michael Collins, together with Armstrong and Aldrin, spent long hours working in simulators that closely recreated every part of the mission. These simulators helped them get used to conditions in space, including zero gravity and the procedures for docking and re-entry. The training was intense and went on for hours, with the crew practicing many different scenarios, from normal operations to emergency situations. For Michael, part of the training involved mastering every system in the command module. He needed to be ready for any kind of problem, especially since he would be alone in the spacecraft while the others were on the moon. His experience as a test pilot proved extremely useful. He was already comfortable managing complicated machines and making important decisions under pressure. Alongside the technical work, the astronauts also went through physical training to stay in excellent health. This included exercises for heart health, muscle strength, and flexibility, each important for handling the physical challenges of space travel. Michael, just like his crewmates, stuck to a strict workout plan and diet to make sure he was physically ready for the mission. One of the key parts of the Apollo 11 preparation was the detailed mission planning. Michael and the rest of the crew worked closely with NASA engineers, flight directors, and mission planners to create a timeline that covered every step of the mission. This included the launch, the lunar landing, the moonwalks, and the return to Earth. Every minute was scheduled and rehearsed to reduce the chances of anything going wrong. Michael played a major role in planning the operations of the command module. He worked directly with engineers to understand how each part of the spacecraft functioned, from navigation and communication to life support systems. His job was to keep the command module working properly while it orbited the Moon, ready to reconnect with the lunar module and bring everyone back to Earth safely. The simulations were especially demanding for Michael. He had to train for every part of his solo orbit around the Moon, including the docking procedure with the lunar module. This was one of the most difficult parts of the mission. The simulations were made to feel real and often included surprise issues to test the crew's ability to stay calm and solve problems quickly. Besides the technical side, there was also a focus on mental preparation. Michael, Neil, and Buzz went through psychological evaluations to make sure they were ready for the stress of spaceflight. For Michael, this meant being alone in the command module while his crewmates explored the Moon. NASA psychologists helped Michael prepare for the isolation he would face. During each orbit of the Moon, there would be times when he had no contact with Earth, sometimes for nearly an hour. This could be mentally challenging, but Michael's calm personality helped him deal with it. He treated the quiet moments as a chance to stay focused and reflect. The crew also did group training to strengthen their teamwork. A strong bond between the three of them was necessary. Michael, Neil, and Buzz built mutual trust during this time, knowing their survival would depend on each other's actions. Michael also spent a lot of time learning everything about the command module's equipment. He didn't just study how the systems worked, he trained to fix problems if something broke during the mission. He practiced using the guidance and navigation systems, which were important for keeping the spacecraft on the correct path. Another part of his training involved mastering the communication systems. He had to be in constant contact with mission control and also with Neil and Buzz while they were on the Moon. Clear communication was important, so Michael spent hours practicing this in simulations. As the launch day got closer, the crew entered their final stage of preparation. This included more simulations, last-minute briefings, and full rehearsals for the launch. They also went into quarantine to make sure no one would bring an illness into space. In the last few days before launch, Michael often thought about the scale of the mission. Even with all the pressure, he stayed calm and focused. His background as a pilot and astronaut helped him stay grounded. He understood the danger, but trusted in the training and planning they had done. Still, nothing could truly prepare him for what he was about to experience, something he never spoke about publicly. The trip to the Moon, Apollo 11, launched on July 16, 1969, from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew lifted off aboard the Saturn V rocket, which was the most powerful rocket ever made. As it launched, the force and noise were almost too much to take in, even for someone like Michael who was used to flying. The shaking and sound were so extreme that the crew only spoke when necessary. Michael was in the command module, named Columbia, at the top of the rocket. The launch went as planned. Each stage of the rocket fired and separated as expected, putting Apollo 11 into Earth's orbit at about 17,500 miles per hour. From space, the crew could see the curve of the Earth, a view that reminded them of how important their mission was. After circling the Earth, the crew moved into the next phase, the translunar injection. This meant firing the rocket's third-stage engine one more time to leave Earth's orbit and head toward the Moon. The timing had to be exact. A mistake here could mean missing the Moon altogether. Once the engine stopped, Apollo 11 was on its way. The spacecraft coasted through space for the next 3 days. Michael was in charge of watching the systems and making sure they stayed on course the whole way. As Apollo 11 neared the Moon, the crew got ready for the crucial step of entering lunar orbit. This required an exact burn of the spacecraft's engine to reduce their speed and allow the Moon's gravity to capture them. The lunar orbit insertion burn was carried out perfectly, and Apollo 11 settled into a stable orbit around the Moon. From this position, the astronauts could clearly see the lunar surface, with its craters and mountains casting long shadows under the low-angle sunlight. With the spacecraft now orbiting the Moon, the next task was for Neil and Buzz to prepare the lunar module, Eagle, for its descent to the surface. This was a tense and delicate operation, as the lunar module needed to separate carefully from the command module and get ready for landing. After the lunar module detached, Michael remained alone in the command module orbiting the Moon, while his teammates went down to the surface. This time tested his endurance and mental strength. He had to keep track of the command module's systems, maintain communication with both Earth and the lunar module, and get ready for the crucial rendezvous after the landing. When Neil and Buzz finished their historic moonwalk and completed their assigned tasks, they returned to join Michael in lunar orbit. The lunar module had to lift off from the Moon's surface and dock with the command module, a move that demanded precise timing and coordination. Michael's job was to make sure the command module was in the right place and ready to connect with the lunar module. The docking was a tense moment because any error could have left the astronauts stranded in lunar orbit. Luckily, the procedure went smoothly, and the 3 astronauts were reunited inside the command module. The journey back to Earth was calmer since the toughest parts of the mission were behind them. Michael kept up his duties, but also had time to think about the mission and what it meant. It's said he looked especially stunned during this time. In their final days in space, the crew carried out system checks, stayed in contact with mission control, and watched the Earth grow bigger through their windows. Re-entering Earth's atmosphere was the last critical phase. The command module's heat shield had to handle temperatures up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit while it plunged through the atmosphere. Michael, responsible for aligning the spacecraft for re-entry, made sure the angle was exact to prevent the module from bouncing off the atmosphere or burning up. As the command module descended, the parachutes opened without issue, and Apollo 11 landed safely in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969. The mission was a full success, but it turned out to be much more than that. What happened after Apollo 11? After the mission, Michael Collins came back to Earth as one of the most respected astronauts ever. Unlike his crewmates Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, Michael did not seek attention. Instead, he chose to make meaningful contributions in other ways and carried the experience of space quietly. In 1970, he left NASA to pursue a career that allowed him to spend more time with his family. He became Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs, but found the political scene limiting compared to the excitement of space exploration. Soon after, he took the role of director at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. His leadership helped the museum open in 1976. Under his direction, it grew to become one of the world's most visited museums, celebrating aviation and space history. Michael was proud to educate the public about human flight, from early aviation to space travel. Later, he moved into aerospace consulting and wrote several books, including his autobiography, Carrying the Fire. His writing showed intelligence, reflection, and a strong sense of duty to share the story of space exploration with others. Michael was known for clear and honest analysis and the ability to share the wonder of space travel while staying realistic. Despite his fame, he preferred a private life. He spent much of his time with his wife, Patricia, and their 3 children. He enjoyed outdoor hobbies like fishing and hiking, finding peace in nature after experiencing the vastness of space. Over the years, Michael stayed committed to supporting space exploration. He firmly believed that human space travel had the power to inspire and bring people together worldwide. While Neil and Buzz often received most of the attention, Michael quietly reminded everyone about the teamwork and collective effort behind Apollo 11's success. He remained active within the astronaut community and NASA, occasionally giving talks and sharing his thoughts on the future of space exploration. He served as a mentor to younger astronauts and was respected as a senior figure in the aerospace field. Even as he grew older, Michael's curiosity about the universe stayed strong. He followed new developments in space technology closely and showed particular interest in the possibility of sending humans to Mars. He frequently spoke about the importance of continuing exploration and pushing beyond the limits of what we know and where we can travel. Throughout his life, many people asked him about his experience orbiting the Moon, especially the times when he lost radio contact with Earth. As the command module pilot, Michael orbited the Moon alone, while Neil and Buzz landed on the surface. During those orbits, he passed over both the near and far sides of the Moon, becoming the first person to see the far side up close. Later in life, Michael began to hint at a mysterious event that happened during those orbits. Though he always described his time alone in the command module as peaceful, he started suggesting there was something more, something he had been hesitant to talk about. Before he passed away, Apollo 11's 3rd astronaut, Michael Collins, finally revealed it. "I'm sorry. We lied," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of silence. "There is something on the far side of the Moon. I was told not to discuss what I saw with anyone, but there was something none of us expected." Here's where it gets even more intriguing. When asked if he felt lonely, Michael simply said he felt anything but lonely. Unfortunately, the details of his experience stayed a mystery, as he took the secret with him to his grave. Still, this cryptic comment left the world wondering. What could it have been? A strange structure? An unknown phenomenon? Or maybe something beyond our current scientific understanding? Sadly, the only person to see the far side of the Moon never shared more about what he encountered publicly. He died in April 2021, leaving behind a legacy of bravery, exploration, and an unanswered question that continues to puzzle and fascinate people. But maybe, just maybe, there's someone he trusted with the secret, someone who knows the full truth about what Michael saw up there. Whether it was a close family member, a trusted colleague, or a friend, there is a chance the complete story might one day be revealed. What do you think happened? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more.